Hi there! Welcome to my second travel vlog on my second channel, Kayla Says More. A couple weeks ago, my friends and I traveled to Europe. This was my second time ever in Europe, and we visited London and Paris, two places that I had never been to, and along the way we gathered lots of experiences, video clips, funny moments, so this is sort of a compilation of that. I will also give a voiceover with, explaining what we did and also some tips and tricks along the way if you ever want to plan a similar trip yourself. So thanks for watching. Okay, so our journey started on March 2nd at 6 p.m. for what is basically a red-eye flight going into London, and our flight got into Gatwick at 6 a.m. This is some footage of us before takeoff. We used Norse Airlines. None of us had ever really used it before. We just happened to get a decent deal on Travel Tuesday when we bought the tickets, and they were flying into and out of the place that we needed to go at the time that we needed to go there, so it seemed like a good fit. Norse is a no-frills, like low-budget sort of airline. You pay for the base ticket, and then anything else that you want to make the experience a more comfortable flight is sort of a fee that you add on after the fact. That being said, this was not a very comfortable flight, you guys. The plane was very small, very cramped. I was having a hard time, and I'm pretty short, and as you'll see in this video, the folks who were traveling with me are all much taller, so they had an even worse time than I did. I will talk more about our Norse experience at the end of this video because I'm gonna do like a dedicated tips and tricks section, but just know that because of the grueling nature of this flight, all of us were pretty wiped by the time we got into Gatwick Airport at 6 a.m. And so basically our first day there, we got to our hotel, we all napped for like 2 hours, we ate some breakfast, and then we headed out to Picture House Cinema in Soho for a screening of Dune 2. Yes, we really went to see Dune 2 on our first day in London, and it was fucking awesome. Here is some video of what Piccadilly Circus, which is the area that the theater was in, looked like when we got out at night. Super beautiful, super fun to explore. This is probably like our collective favorite area of London that we visited the whole time we were there. And after the movie, we went to a little pub called The Lyric. This is some video of the downstairs of the pub with all of the stickers on the walls around the bar. And then upstairs was where we got our food. This is probably like the most traditional British food we had the entire trip. And despite the bad rap that British food gets, I think most of us enjoyed it. Afterwards, we got dessert at this cute little place that sells macaroons and gelato, and it was really good. And that was our first day in London. The next day was our big touristy day in London. So we started the day by hopping on the tube and making our way over to the London Eye, which we had bought tickets for ahead of time. We stayed in Ealing, which is about a 40-minute train ride from London proper. It really wasn't that bad getting around. A lot of the big touristy stuff that we wanted to see this day was actually close by in the same area, so basically we had some time to kill before Big Ferris wheel, so we decided to check out Big Clock.
If that's not it, I'd be very surprised. But no,
Live Big Clock reaction?
Big Clock.
Live Big Clock reaction?
Big.
It's definitely telling the time.
Then we walked over a bridge to the other side of the water where the London Eye was located, and before we boarded at our select time, we took a teeny detour at a store nearby. Bro, I went to the Shrek store and everybody knew you. Shrek is love?
The Shrek experience, man.
I guess it's true. Ogres really do have layers and tons of merchandise.
Give him a little kiss.
This is the actual view from the Eye. It's very cool. It goes up pretty slow, but you get an entire view of the city. Definitely worth the money, in my opinion. After this, we headed over to the area by St. James Park that has these royal buildings. We saw some guards doing their thing. And before we got to the actual, Buckingham Palace, we had to cut through the park. And this is some video of that. It was a very nice park. Look at him run! Look at him run! We saw Buckingham Palace. They sent us there to find Kate Middleton. We looked around everywhere for her. We couldn't find her, unfortunately. We then stopped by this cute little vintage market that had some really cool stuff. It was absolutely massive and overwhelming, and I bought 2 pairs of sunglasses. And then we headed over to Abbey Road. Now, Abbey Road was a personal side quest of Brian's because he is a huge Beatles fan. And the interesting thing about Abbey Road is that it is just simply a functioning two-way street with no stoplights or stop signs or anything. So if you want to get a picture akin to the iconic Beatles album, you essentially have to risk your life by running into two-way traffic. And because I'm a good partner, I did this for him, and because my friends are dedicated to the bit, they filmed me doing this and almost getting hit by a motorcycle.
Maybe.
Go, 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 go. Oh my god, she's gonna get hit by a motorcycle.
Then we all turned in for the night because we had to get up the next morning to go to fucking France, baby. There was a method to the madness in this bizarre travel plan, I promise. All you have to know right now is that on Tuesday, all 5 members of our party were in Paris, doing as many Paris touristy things as we could possibly do. We only had 1 day to get most of this done, and I will explain why in a bit. So we started our day over at Carrette, which is a cute little breakfast brunch kind of place over by the Eiffel Tower. You might know them for their TikTok famous hot chocolate. This meal was delicious, probably one of the best that we had on the entire trip. Brian and I were even able to squeeze in a second meal at this place, and it was absolutely worth it. It was so good. Definitely would recommend if you're ever in Paris. Of course, we had to do some photo ops at the Eiffel Tower, and then we headed over to Notre Dame. Obviously, we were not able to go inside, but we were able to, you know, witness the beauty of the outside. And over by the famous church is a famous bookstore called Shakespeare & Company. It is one of the oldest bookstores in the world, and Brian got a copy of Dune. After this, our party of 5 decided to split up to do a couple different things, and Brian and I decided to go to the Museo d'Orsay. Pro tip, I would recommend going here, but definitely buy the tickets in advance. We ended up buying them on our phones outside the building to avoid the standby line, and it was proving to be a very stressful experience. So if you're gonna go here, which I do recommend, buy them before. By the way, if you're wondering why we didn't go to the Louvre, it was closed on the Tuesday that we were there. Then Brian and I met up with Griffin and Michaela to do a catacombs tour. We did pay for this tour. This is a section of the catacombs that you were actually allowed to go into with a sanctioned entrance. This is definitely one of the most unique things we did. Not everybody I know who has gone to Paris has done it, and I would recommend it if you're into like the spooky, macabre kind of stuff. All of the bones in here are real, so it is a little freaky to kind of pass through and pass by them, but we're glad we did it. We finished our night at an Italian restaurant called Scabetti over by the Eiffel Tower. It was really good. This is our spread. They fucked up one of our orders, so they give us free limoncello shots. Hey, this is all of us taking limoncello, yay! And that was night 1 in Paris. Okay, so let me just quickly explain the seemingly random Paris excursion. Basically, prior to us leaving for the trip and organizing, you know, what we were going to do each day, Michaela happened to book a tattoo appointment in Manchester for the Wednesday. That same Wednesday, Jacob was also going to be in Manchester because he was going to a Man City game. That left me and Brian not having anything to do on that Wednesday. And so, us being us, we decided to go to Disneyland Paris. Disneyland Paris was really cool if you are specifically me and Brian. We're notorious theme park nerds, so it was really cool to check this park out and, you know, kind of see the differences between a Paris park and an American theme park. The Paris park doesn't naturally have as many, you know, bells and whistles as the American parks, but it does have some really cool little details. For example, the giant animatronic dragon that's just under the castle that you can go see. Really, really cool. We also sprung for the fast pass option for both parks. It works differently than it does in the American parks. You kind of just pay for the extra privilege of having the fast pass, and then it works on pretty much all of the big attractions. Okay, so we are wrapping up Disneyland, like the Disneyland park, because there's another park that has like Ratatouille and Tower of Terror and all those rides. Yep. But this is like traditional Disneyland. So Give me your thoughts. What impressed you? What do you think needs work? Tell the people.
I think it's just, they do a really good job of like translating the rides from like the biggest rides from the other parks, and they add something extra to each one. They like make it whether it's like a bigger set piece or like cooler effects, more animatronics. Like every ride we've been on, it's very familiar, but it's also something you haven't seen before.
Yeah, the attention to detail is really cool. The standout ride for me was Hyperspace Mountain, which if you've seen the Defunct Land video, you know what that is. It beats all the hype. It was so good. We're gonna probably try to go back and do it again.
Yeah, now we're like approaching Phantom Manor, not Haunted Mansion.
The French love a horror.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like horror elements in every ride.
Things are darker.
Things are darker
in
and
a cool
scary.
way. It's still not like actually scary. Like it's like I wish American parks were that willing to be a little spooky.
I'm terrified. So yeah, as we mentioned, the Disneyland park has more of the classic Disneyland rides, and then they sort of have this second hastily thrown together park with more of the newer IP-based stuff. This is where the Avengers campus is. The highlight of this park was probably the Ratatouille ride, and some of the Ratatouille theming was kind of cool. For example, they had little carts serving all this kind of like French food that you can't get anywhere else in the park. Pistachio. Let's try it out.
I don't really like pistachio flavored things. I love pistachios.
We'll see. Good?
Yeah, Interesting.
After Disneyland, Brian and I got home from the park a little bit earlier than expected, so we decided to huff it out into the streets of Paris one more time and try to go up the Eiffel Tower. Now you can buy tickets in advance for this. We did not, just because we had such a short amount of time, but because our hotel was so close to the Eiffel Tower, we decided to just go down there and see if they had any available tickets for the time slots that were currently left in the evening, and they did. I will say, and I say this as somebody who is not even really that afraid of heights, I would not recommend doing this if you are afraid of heights, because the elevator is sort of like this open cage type of deal where you can literally see the ropes that are pulling you up, and it's pretty high up, and they pack a lot of people into the elevator, so it's a little scary, I'm not gonna lie. The next day, the group reconvened in London, and because we were all tired from our various travels, it was more of a low-key day. We got Indian food at Dishoom for lunch/dinner. They gave Griffin a big-ass beer.
I wasn't expecting this.
Then we went into this giant toy store called Hamley's. It was adorable. It was so much fun. We were on the hunt there for these little stuffed animals called jellycats, and they didn't have a great selection, but it was just a really fun time to like walk around and look at everything anyway. After this, Michaela and Griffin continued their quest for jellycats at another store, and Brian and I headed to a West End production of Guys and Dolls. The next day, me, Jacob, and Brian headed out to Borough Market, which is probably one of my favorite things that we did throughout this trip. It's sort of an open street food market. If you've been on like travel social media, you've probably seen clips of it before, like the paella guy, for example. And this is definitely the best food we had in London. I had mac and cheese from this little mac and cheese cart, and it was delicious. It was so good. And Brian and Jacob got sandwiches from a place called Black Pig, and I'll just show you their reaction to it.
Tell me about your sandwich.
Incredible. This is the second half. I already got the first half. Yeah, pork shoulder, honey truffle mayo, just so much. It's incredible. There's apple slaw in here. I'm a big sandwich. You know I'm a big sandwich guy.
Big sandwich guy.
And this is one of the best ones I think I've ever had.
We finished off Borough Market with the TikTok famous chocolate covered strawberries, and they were really good. And the three of us met back up with Michaela and Griffin, and we walked around Covent Garden and Neal's Yard. This eventually led us to the Shoreditch Market area, and that's the video that you're seeing here. We kind of just explored, walked around, shopped, and all of that exploring eventually led us to a very interesting place. Basically, Brian saw on the official South Park account's Instagram that they were doing a pop-up shop in Shoreditch where we happened to be, and we went in, we saw, all the little merch that they had the little photo op, and they actually let us play a demo of the new game that's coming out in a couple weeks, South Park Snow Day. This was really fun. We all got to play together. There was also some guy shooting us with like a professional camera, so I wouldn't be surprised if you randomly see us in some kind of promotional video within the next few weeks. Then we got ramen. Here's Jacob and Griffin doing a beer clink. For this next part, I just want to give a brief precursor to the London drag scene. You guys have great drag, but it is impossible to figure out what is going on at your shows and where and what time they're happening. So if you haven't already guessed, Friday night, Michaela and I decided to go to a drag show in London, and we went to Heaven Nightclub. Heaven Nightclub is an insane place that I'm not sure if I'll ever go to again. It was quite a lot. We had fun, but it was a lot. Shout out to every single fan of mine who has ever been in London who helped me figure this out. I literally could not have figured any of this out without any of you, so thank you so very much. But basically the optimal way to get into Heaven Nightclub to see a drag show is to go to a separate club in a separate location called GAY. There you can get a wristband for just $2, and those wristbands will help you get into Heaven later on at night, because Heaven is apparently notorious for not letting everybody inside. The person who gave us the wristbands told us that the drag shows start at midnight, so we went in at 11 thinking that we would just have an hour to kill, and we ended up having 2 hours to kill because the girls did not go on till 1 a.m. That being said, it was a fantastic show. The London girlies, they know how to do it up. It was a great time. While Michaela and I were doing this, the boys had a little boys' night back in Ealing. They went to this sort of barcade place that had electronic darts and a bunch of other games. This is the first time I'm seeing any of the videos from this night, so I'm just gonna play a couple of them for you now.
There it is, there it is, there it is!
On Saturday morning, me, Jacob, and Brian went out to Richmond to see the set of where they shot Ted Lasso. This is some footage from that. The place was rather crowded because it was the day of the England versus Ireland rugby game, and this was the meetup spot for all of the Irish people, I guess. But it was really cute, really fun. There was this little Italian cafe that was selling like the Ted Lasso biscuits that we snacked on all day. And from there, the three of us spent some time at the British Museum.
Wow. Yeah, that's what they use for mine.
We all met up for one last dinner in Ealing, and then we headed back home, only to be delayed an hour because the air conditioning on the aircraft was not working, and then on the way into JFK, somebody got arrested on our plane. Okay, so I'm dedicating the last section of this video to tips and tricks. Don't fly Norse. Or if you're gonna fly Norse, be very careful about how you do it, especially if it's an international flight. Invest in things that are going to make you comfortable, like extra leg room. If you have a carry-on that's like kinda big, but you've taken it on an American airline before and it has worked fine, assume that you cannot bring it on a Norse flight. We got screwed because we brought a slightly bigger carry-on. We should have checked the size beforehand, but we've taken it on American flights, so we assumed it was fine. It didn't fit in the little stupid-ass box thing, and we ended up getting charged $130. Like, just do your research ahead of time if you want to take a budget airline like Norse. If you are someone who prioritizes comfort, probably look into a different airline. We took British Airways from London to Paris, and that was lovely. It was only an hour flight, but it was lovely. If you were going to France and you were staying there for a while, it might actually be helpful to brush up on basic French phrases. We found that a lot of people outside of like service areas do not speak English, and that has not been in my experience in like other European countries. Like I went to Spain and everybody there spoke English, so you know, shame on me, dumb American, for assuming it would be the same. But I don't know, not to sound like ignorant, but the stereotype about French people kind of being dicks, like, it is true, I think, and I respect it, but yeah, they don't have a lot of patience for English-speaking people, and that's fine, I understand why. If you are going to France, Paris specifically, have an itinerary, and I know this sounds crazy, but like, our plan for London most days was to just sort of walk around and vibe, and you know, we would have little pit stops of things we definitely wanted to see, and that worked because the train system is very easy to understand, and everything is pretty close by. Paris, everything is a lot more spread out than you would think, and the trains, in our experience, was a little bit more difficult to navigate, so we ended up taking a lot of Ubers everywhere just because it was easier, and so I would just recommend like have a set out, you know, hour by hour kind of day, and you'll be able to get more out of your experience just because everything is so far away from each other. Do not interact with the buskers on the train. If somebody brings an instrument on your place of public transit, on your car or whatever, do not interact with them. Do not clap, do not smile, because they will come up to you and ask for a tip, and it'll be really awkward, and you just kind of have to pretend like they are not there.